Hi! So, if you're watching this, you're either interested in trying to use Blender, or at least for some early basic information. Uh, Two, you're interested in using the Rumi Rooms Blender file that I'm going to put out there. Or three, you're just curious for some reason in regards to other stuff. Regardless of what you're here for, um, I'm going to go over some basic information in regards to how to use Blender, how to navigate it, and then I'm also going to go ahead and go over how to actually navigate the file for the Blender model that I ended up making. And then after that, I'll give you some extra tips and other extra help. And then if there's anything else that you have any questions about, feel free to reach out, shoot me a DM on Twitter, go ahead and reply to the main thread if you can't get a hold of me, just because Twitter's DMs have changed and it's kind of hard to see them sometimes, and I just use like the browser desktop one. Um, and yeah, for the most part, if you have any other questions, I have literally zero qualms in answering anything. I'm more than willing to go ahead and like go over information with you. And then if you were curious about other stuff, like, I'm just a resource. So, um, always big on community, always big on helping. And for those who are curious, I love to go ahead and reward that curiosity. So let's go ahead and jump into it. So you're going to go ahead and download Blender. Blender is completely free. It's an open source program. You can use it however you'd like for things. But for the most part, it is a free program. The current Blender model that Blender version that I'm using right now is 4.0. There are updates that come in future ones. I believe they're on like 4.3 right now. I'm not entirely sure. Don't quote me on that. But for the most part, in regards to Blender, they're about the same, give or take, no matter what you end up using. So in terms of using Blender though, there's a couple things you might need for it. One, you're gonna go ahead and need a computer that can run Blender for one. Two, you're gonna need your keyboard. And then three, this is like kind of the more important one, is you're gonna need a mouse that has like the three button options. What I mean by that is it's the left click, it's the right click for things, and then it's also the scroll wheel. And you should be able to go ahead and press the scroll wheel to go ahead and have that as like the middle button. That's what I mean when I say three buttons. Those are the things you need to keep in note. Okay. Also included, I'll go ahead and make like a very quick like cheat sheet, just because this is like very casual. So it's just going to be like a very basic video. And I'm not going to really edit it too clearly. I'm just doing something just to go ahead and do a voiceover and then just go over some like quick notes for things. But for the most part, I'll include a cheat sheet. You can go ahead and review it. If you have any other questions, go ahead and shoot me a DM. Go ahead and ask me questions for other stuff. But for the most part, something you need to know. So left click button, this is your select option. So if you click and drag, you'll go ahead and, just like if you were on desktop, you'll go ahead and collect all of them. Okay. This is the default screen that you'll pop up to into Blender, no matter what. Okay. The right click option on your mouse should go ahead and uh, allow you to go ahead and see some other options. For now, this might seem overwhelming, but we'll get to it. This is not entirely necessary for some of the things you need to know. So when you're operating in Blender though, in order to go ahead and like rotate the space, this is where you'll go ahead and click the middle mouse button, which is the scroll wheel. And this is how you end up moving within space to go ahead and rotate it. Okay. You can also use the scroll wheel to go ahead and zoom in and out, and you navigate this way. Okay. On your keyboard, the button for shift, you have to press and hold it as you do. If you use the scroll wheel to go ahead and go to the left and to the right, this is how you'll go ahead and move from certain angles. Okay. So just one more time: left mouse button to select all, right for some other options in regards to the objects, and then middle mouse button to rotate the scene around a pivot point, and then also shift while holding the middle mouse button to go ahead and actually navigate the space. Okay. Other things to know, right? This is a little bit different from if you use Photoshop, Clip Studio, any other things. Um, some basic buttons you need to know, and this will probably be on the cheat sheet, is when you select an object, you'll go ahead and use G, which is the hotkey for G. This is to move an object, okay? To go ahead and make it bigger, you use the key S to go ahead and scale. You go in, out, right? Something that's really nice about the Blender user interface is that even if you scroll and you keep going all the way to the right, it'll go ahead and loop back on the side. You'll watch it as I go ahead and go from the center, and I keep going right, and it keeps on coming in as you see it coming in from the left, continuing to go to the right. So you could go endlessly if you'd like. You probably shouldn't. Don't do that, because depending on how much power your computer has, you may or may not be able to do it. Okay, and the other object, the other hotkey that is besides G and S is R. This is to rotate an object, right? Okay, so, and then apply your usual of like Control Z to undo something, yes. And then if you're to redo something, Control Shift Z. But on this object, right, you'll see that in your UI, you'll see that there is the Z, the Y, and the X axis. X axis runs from left to right, Y runs from up to down, okay? And then Z is actually that third axis that goes from the actual third dimension going actually literally vertically and down, okay? With this, you'll see that there are a couple things in this set. You'll see that there is the camera, and you'll see that there is the sun. This is your ability to go ahead and use any light source that is in the space, okay? One of the other things to know about some of the other hotkeys is the hotkey of Z. Z shows you different options for how to run your display, right? So this is solid, right? So all you'll do is press and hold Z, and then you'll move with your mouse to go ahead and change to alternate modes, right? So if you have light in the scene, then you'll go ahead and, if you leave it off on rendered, it'll show you that there are some light, right? And if you rotate this, you'll see that the yeah. Right. You can go to material preview if you choose to assign materials, right? You can go to wireframe. I usually don't use that, but for the most part, it'll be on solid or it'll be on rendered. Those are the primary things that you'll be using it for. So that being said, this is where we're at, okay? On this axis, this is to go ahead and show you as both a reminder, but also for a very quick key for things. So if you're by chance modeling something or adjusting it from a certain angle, you can go ahead and actually click on these preset viewpoints. So if you click on this X, it'll actually show it to you from exactly dead on. Where there's zero perspective, zero anything, you'll just see it from this point of view. You can do it from one side of the Y, right? And you can also do it from the other side, right? Same thing with the Z's, okay? Something to note is when you end up using the G, the S, and also the R hotkeys, you can use them in tandem with the preset options. What I mean by that is if you wanted to make it bigger, like along the Y-axis, and like scale it that way, you would press whatever the main three keys are, which is G, S, and R, right? You'll press any of those keys, and then right after that, you'll follow it with the axis. So what I mean by that is, like, let's say I wanted to move it along the X-axis. So I press G to move, and then I press X to go ahead and move it along the axis. Then we're moving along the X-axis, and you get to move it however far. You're basically like doing it. So whenever you're ready, if you've moved it, you'll go ahead and use the left click button to go ahead and like finalize that decision. If you are scaling it, let's say I wanted to scale it against the Y-axis, you'll go ahead and hit S, and then you'll hit Y, and then you can go ahead and scale it along that size. So if you wanted to scale it overall, because it's just going to do it as a general basis of just making it larger, but if you wanted to scale it against a certain axis, you have to press the axis key after. If you wanted to rotate it along the Z-axis, so what that'd look like is if you're rotating it like this, right? It means that if I was to go look from the top, which is the same idea, this is rotating it along the Z-axis. If you rotate it along the X-axis, then you might get this option. Sometimes I just highly recommend going ahead and giving like a general look to go ahead and see certain stuff like this, okay? I'm just pressing Control Z throughout most of that. But for the most part, this is what we're looking for, right? This is what we'll go ahead and give those options. And in the collection, right, if you wanted to, let's say, add another object, you'll go ahead and hit Shift A, and this will give you this add option. This is the macro for adding something. So if you want to add a cube, if you want to add a cylinder or sphere, any of those things, this is where you're going to be doing it, right? And it'll always put it up on this point right here. You'll see that there is a little circle and like like there's a little crosshair. This crosshair is known as like the origin, the main origin. Okay, so everything that you end up spawning will go ahead and spawn in on that origin point. That's the world origin. So all of these things will go ahead and spawn in right there. Okay, so let's say you have a cylinder or a sphere. If it looks kind of jagged like this, there's not anything necessarily wrong with that. But let's say you want it to look actually smooth, you'll go ahead and like right click it and you'll hit shade auto smooth, and then I'll give you that auto smooth look. Okay, some of the things that you need to know about Shift A in particular is when you go ahead and do Shift A, you'll go ahead and have options for all these other options for mesh and everything, but the main two separate ones that you do need to know about are for light and for camera. This is where you'll go ahead and pull them in. Okay, with light, you have options for point, sun, spot, area. Okay, I just highly recommend just using just the sun. This is probably going to be the only one that you're really going to need. And this is the one where if you rotate it, right, it'll just rotate it against whatever angle you're looking at. Whenever you rotate something, it's just rotating it in the angle you're looking at. So just make sure that you're doing it in the right direction. Either way, you can always figure it out, right? So let's go ahead and hit Z, and we'll go ahead and hit rendered. But as you can tell, this is how big the light is. Okay, on this side, there's a bunch of buttons, there's a bunch of information, you're not sure what it is. Okay, this is just for the object. If you have your mouse and you hover over an object for like something in the UI for long enough, it'll probably pop up a little note for what it says you can do with it. Okay, but for the main thing you need to know is that for this sun, for this light in particular, you'll see this green option that says data. You'll want to go ahead and click that. Okay, this is where you can change the color of a light. Okay, it's also where you can change the strength. I personally end up using 10 at about all times. It gives enough strength for all of, like what I needed to do. You end up using this green button for the light in tandem with the world properties option. This is where everything looks, this is only applicable in regards to when it's rendered, okay? Because when it's in solid, you're not gonna fucking see anything, okay? So when you're in rendered, you'll see that there is all these other options for things, right? Okay, but everything looks gray, yes, right? Look at the world, it's all gray. Same thing for the shadows. Okay, this is also where you can go ahead and change the overall color for what something is, all right? You can change how bright it is, how low it is, how dark it is, these types of things, okay? Main things to know is that, right, we have blue light, we have pink shadows, okay? You could do whatever you want. It's up to you on how you choose to do things. So you could take your pick, okay? Main thing to know is the render properties for this section, wherever you're gonna have things. You'll want to click render. You'll want to scroll down. You'll see this option for shadows. For shadows, I personally typically it'll always reset no matter every single time you open up Blender. I would highly recommend going to like the maximum. I personally remove soft shadows. You don't have to. It's more like something up to taste on how you choose to render it. More often than not, the render engine you're going to be using this in, you might hear about like cycles or other type of engines. This just means how Blender ends up processing information. It's like when you export from Photoshop or from any other drawing program where you go, oh, I'm gonna export it as like a Photoshop file, as a PDF, as etc. It's not entirely like that, but I'm just doing it for very quick sake. Okay. Keep it in Eevee. It's usually easier on your computer. You don't really, if you're using it in the way that I would use it, which is typically just to do mock-ups and then I do paint overs, I don't need anything terribly crazy. If you do something in cycles, yes, you'll go ahead and have the option to render it with crazy materials and crazy lighting, but also you might end up having a chance where your computer actually might have to work a little bit harder and it has to actually spend a little bit more time to render things. It's part of the reason why, if you've never done 3D before, sometimes they'll say that, oh my god, it took like 8 hours for me to go ahead and like render out a scene, right? Or sometimes even longer than that. Okay. So I just personally recommend just doing Eevee, especially if you're going to be doing paint over it. One of the other things in render besides shadows to go ahead and adjust is also for the ambient occlusion. What is ambient occlusion, you ask? Ambient occlusion is actually just the extra shadows that tell you a little bit more information for things. So what I mean by that is, if you actually look right here, right, between where the cylinder and where it meets the cube, you'll see that if I lower it like crazy, you can't really tell the difference between where the cylinder meets that cube, right? If it's at 0, you see nothing, right? Let me go ahead and zoom in right here, okay? So you can focus on it a little bit better. If you turn up the ambient occlusion, it'll basically put extra shadows where those shadows contact meet, okay? This is great for that, okay? That's one of the other things I need to note that I would personally recommend if you're going ahead and doing the scene. Oops, sorry. Make sure that when you have your light option, whatever light you're doing, is you're going to have shadows checked on and also the contact shadows checked on. It just gives a little bit more realistic for things for the most part. If you do it without, like, sometimes you'll see it, you can always like mess with it, but for the most part it just ends up connecting things, okay? If you're adding things, what is this? This is basically the equivalent of like layers and other objects within a space, like if you were to use Photoshop or Clip Studio or any other program, okay? If you are trying to create a folder, like if you would in Photoshop, I'm just talking about Photoshop because that's what I personally use for like everything that I draw. You can right click and you can add a new collection, okay? Same way that you'd use it is you do shift and you collect multiple, and then you can always drag and drop, okay? Now this operates like that. In this part of the UI, you'll see that there is the eye and there is the camera. If you are choosing to render it out, if you click this, you might see that the objects are still there. But if you click the eye option, it means it'll hide it in the viewport. This area that you're looking at everything, this is known as the viewport. If you render it out, whether you're choosing to hit render and then do render image, then it'll hide it in the camera when it starts to render the main image, okay? Something to note, right? Let's say you wanted to edit the object a little bit more specifically, right? For this object, if you wanted to edit it, you'll hit tab. With tab, now you have options to everything else. You'll see right here, there's a couple ways to edit. There are 3 different modes to edit. You can edit by vertex, you can edit by edge, and you can edit by face. With vertex, this is a singular point, right? So vertex, 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 right? If I hit G, you'll move it, right? But the thing is that this functions very similar to how you end up interacting with every other object. If you wanted to do it directly on that Z axis, you'll hit G and you'll hit Z, and you'll go ahead and be able to move it directly that way, right? Okay. If you want it, let's say you didn't want to do that. Let's say you wanted to actually move a specific edge, right? The hotkeys for using this, sure, you could go ahead and click it on the top, but you also have the option to do 1, 2, or 3. Those are the hotkeys to go ahead and just automatically change it in those edit modes. If you're hitting 1, you're editing the vertex. If you hit 2, you're editing the edge. And if you're hitting 3, you're editing a face, okay? It operates just about the same, right? You'll see that this highlighted part is highlighted in white to go ahead and edit it, okay? You could do it along the z-axis, you could do it along the x-axis, right? You could do it along the y-axis, you know, up to you. If you wanted to select multiple edges, multiple faces, it doesn't matter, right? Let's say I'm editing faces right now, right? I selected this one on the top, but let's say I wanted to select more than one side, okay? If you wanted to select more than one side, you can press and hold shift while collecting other sides, okay? By doing that, you'll grab all of them, right? I just grabbed the top and the side, and if I moved it, this is where I'm at, right? And so it stays pivoted, or it stays anchored at this edge point because I ended up grabbing these two faces. But let's say I wanted to grab particularly these two, right? But because it's like a singular object, right? Let's do this one. And if you wanted to exit out of that, you'll press tab again, okay? Let's say I wanted to pull these 2 points, right? And I'll do it along the y-axis, right? This is what it looks like, right? Oh, look, a cute little bunny, okay? There's your options for things. These, I'm going fairly quickly, so go ahead and slow down the video, go ahead and review things. I will have the cheat sheet. It'll probably make it a little bit easier, but if you've never used the program before, it's a little bit of a learning curve, no problem otherwise. But for the most part, these are some of the basic keys. I'm just going by very quickly considering that this will be probably like a 30-minute video, or if anything, a little bit longer than that. And I really don't want it to be too long, okay? So those are the basic informations, okay? When you're using these things, okay? When you are done, let's say you're done with this and you like this, okay? If you are trying to export it, you do view. At least for me, if you were to do it during my pipeline for things where it's like I'm just using like the mock-up for stuff, you can do view and you can hit render image, okay? This will show you exactly what this is. And if you say, oh my god, wait, why does it still have all the lines? Why does it still have everything else? Why is everything still selected? You can go ahead, close it out. You can, if you hit this option, it will remove all of that from the space. If you need to hide anything from the corner, you can click this. It will actually like show, like hide the gizmos. You don't need to do that for most of it, but for the most part, this is what it is, okay? You can hide this, you can do that. You can hit viewport render image. Now you just have a very clean image. You'll hit image and then you can do save as, and you can save it as a PNG. I'm not going to do that because it's going to show a bunch of my files and I'm not trying to do that. But that's your option for stuff. Just remember to go ahead and click on for that, okay? In regards to doing anything else, you can always make your changes. Just make sure, as usual, you do file, save as, and it will save it as a blend file. If you have it as a blend file, you can open it at any time, but just remember that any other state that you're having, it will keep it as such, okay? Now, let's say you wanted to have multiple views. Yes, okay. You can go ahead and right-click somewhere on the side over here, like between everything, right? Somewhere in the UI. These are known as like just different areas. It's the same way that you'd operate within navigating between like the navigator space and the file folder space and the color space on your drawing program. So, but in here, you'll go ahead and right click on that header. You could do it anywhere, it doesn't matter. It can be on this one, it could be on that one, it doesn't matter. If you, let's say you wanted to have multiple views, right? You could do a vertical split, you could do a horizontal split. It'll operate just about the same. You'll see that there's this line. What it will do is it will cut the space in half, and you can use it as basically any other option. How do you change it, right? In these spaces, this is the editor type. You'll go ahead and click this button, and you can go ahead and change it to whatever view you'd like it to be, right? Sometimes, what do I personally use this for? I use this to go ahead. I did Shift A and I hit camera, right? I usually typically use this to go ahead and view my spaces and see things while I can operate and move things. What I mean by that, right, is sure, I'm moving the camera here, but let's say I wanted to view and see what I was doing right now. If you click this button, it will go ahead and toggle the camera view. This is what you see through the camera specifically, okay? So now, while this is over here and I'm viewing the camera, I can still move objects in this space. I can navigate, I can still look through things, right? I can do all of this and still look at this, so I can go ahead and double check my composition for things, okay? Something that's really nice about the camera is that similar to how you operate with the light source, you also have the option to go ahead and change it. It's this green data button again, right? So this is where it is. This is where your focal length comes in. This is where all the other extra stuff comes in, okay? Down here at the bottom, if you see viewport display, you can do the drop down menu. This is pass part out. Pass part out, basically, if you look over here, you'll see that everything's like semi-grayed out. If you move it up, you'll see that it turns to black. It just makes it easier to go ahead and focus on your actual thumbnail that you're working with. Something else that you can add in if you'd like to is that down here there's a drop down menu. It says composition guides. If you drop it down, you'll see that there's an option for thirds. You'll see that there is a faint outline for rule of thirds, right? If you wanted to do something in the center, right here. Okay, I typically use this to go ahead and to help do mock-ups for my compositions that I usually end up doing, but again, it's entirely up to you. In this area, one of the other things that you can use this for is to zoom out the camera. Look, I'm not moving anything, but if I change the focal length, this is where it comes in that like I can typically zoom out. You'll see it displayed and you'll see it as per how the camera moves in terms of the space. I'm not typically moving it. This is how you can go ahead and try to get different focal lengths. It just means how much is the camera really processing of the space. Yes. But the basic one that you'll probably typically see would be 50. I would highly not recommend going too low, like any lower than like 24, or it starts to look sometimes unnatural. 30 is a good spot. Sometimes you could go closer. I would say that like anything over like 60. 50 is like the very like even middle, but it's up to you how you would like to. You can always look up an entirely different thing for how focal lengths operate with cameras, because this is all Blender is doing is simulating that for the most part. Okay. And then if you wanted to move the camera, if you hit G and then you hit X, oops, so sorry. If you hit G and you hit X, you can move it along the x-axis. If you hit G and Y, you can move it along the y-axis. If you hit G, Z, you can go ahead and move it along the z-axis. Something else to know, and this is true on any type of object, okay? You can always rotate everything on a specific axis. What I mean by that is, like, let's see that this object, is like this. Yes. So we're seeing that it's rotated at an angle, and it's technically the way that it is. And I can still move it on the x-axis, but it'll move like so basic like this. Yes. But let's say, oh man, I already rotated it though, but I wanted to rotate it within the specific space that it was in. So what you're talking about is the local axis. How you can move something along its local axis is if you do G and you hit the axis that you're trying to move it along twice. If you do X, it'll go along that axis. If you do X again, it'll do it along the local axis, Same thing goes for Z, I could move it this way, but if I do Z again, it will be along the Z axis of the local, like the local Z axis of the object, okay? Same thing for Y, Oops, So, why did I bring that up? Because you can also do the same thing when it comes to the camera. So if I do rotate along X, but then I do X again, it will rotate it along the main X axis. This is great for doing looking up camera views versus looking down. You can also go ahead and do G, Z, Z. And so this usually is very helpful for bringing a camera in or out for things. Okay, those are just some very, very quick tips for stuff. If you'd like to go ahead and experiment, feel free to. Those are the main things that I can think of off of the top of my head for things. Oh, one more. Over here, you'll see that there is a little tab on your UI. If you click and drag it out, or you'll click it either way, you'll see that there are some options that are right here. If you hit view, you will see that there are some other options that are right here. This option right here says camera to view. If you click this and you hide it and you go into the camera view, however you move, so this is with like the middle mouse button, if you're rotating it in the space, it will move to be whatever your view for things is. Okay. Beware though, is whatever you're done for, when you are done, please remove this out and make sure you uncheck it. If you do not uncheck it and you change your angle, you will lose the camera angle that you have just gotten. Okay. Let's say though, you didn't want to go ahead and view it through the viewport, or you didn't want to do it through the camera lens. You wanted to just navigate for a space. And let's say, oh, you didn't think about camera until about like now or so. You can also have the other option of clicking view, and you could do align view, and then you do align active camera to view. Okay. It will basically move the camera to wherever it is that you're at. Okay. Part of the reason why it says align active camera though, align view, align active camera, is because there you can have more than one camera going, right? If you do Shift A and I added like another camera, notice how there is the button that's right here. The active camera is going to refer to which one is selected. You see that there's these toggle options. You can swap which camera is active as per this toggled button. You'll see that, right? This button was toggle the camera view, and this camera that's right here, it's inside this cube. And if I was to swap views, you'll see that this, right, because this was the active one, right? Because this is just the camera view, like viewport. You'll see that I'm inside the cube right now. And then swapping back to the other option, this is where you're at right now, okay? This is a very quick, like 30-minute slapdash over it. This is basically, I'm just giving all the information for if you've never ever touched Blender and this is the first time you're ever touching it, okay? As usual, if you're good and you're done, you'll go ahead and hit file, you'll hit save, you'll hit save as, you'll go ahead and save it on your desktop, okay? Blender is a great tool, great asset. I highly recommend it. It's open source, and there's like a great community that ends up actually being super duper supportive. And right, there's like 1,000 gajillion like tutorials out there available to you to go ahead and like use things. And the thing is that even if you're lost, you also have one more important resource, one more like bridge to go ahead and like help you get through things, and that's me. So if you have any other questions, again, I reiterate, like, let me know. I love people who are curious, and the thing is like, right, art is accessible and it's always meant to be. So, you know, just ask. But this is it in terms of main slapdash how to use Blender. Okay, this is, I'm just going over information. If you've already known this, you can go ahead and skip ahead either way. But that is in regards to basic information about Blender. Okay, now I'm gonna go ahead and go into actually using the Blender file that I made. Okay, so this is the main Blender file. Yes. Okay, and I'm just gonna leave that actually. But this is the room. Okay, so this is organized already in a certain way. As you can see, this is the space for Rumi's room. This is where the default camera is. If you, I haven't cleaned up the file. I'm probably gonna clean it up a little bit, as per where it was before. But for the most part, in regards to this file, which I will go ahead. I'm so sorry, I don't have her name up. But the right, all of these designs, this model, I did not design it. I just based it off of the model and the concept art that was made by Mingjue Helen Chen. I didn't design it. 1,000%. Please, 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 please give flowers to the KPDH artist, cast, crew, like, but more than, like, I know that we've given support for those who end up doing voice and like for like singing and everything, but please, please, please remember that none of this would have been possible without the actual artists who actually made this possible. So if you really love the movie, please support your local artists, please support like fandom artists, please support people who are like striving for their dreams to go ahead and get into the animation or even entertainment industry, regardless of whatever it is they're doing. Just please show support to other artists. But I didn't do this design. I'll probably put something in for the entire duration, just giving it at for the credits for the concept art that I base off of the model for, because I did not design it, right? Because it's right. Hello, the movie. Um, I'll clean up the file. So this is just like a little bit messy. You might have seen though in some of the files, right? Oh, look, it's her room. It's her room. Yeah. Where Rumi sleeps and like everything. Okay. Um, some of the things that you might note about this space is that there's a lot going on, right? And the main thing to know that's going on is that with with Rumi's room, like this is like the basic look of it, you know. Okay. Um is everything perfect? No. Um is everything good? No. But for the most part this is just a blend file, you know, of the space itself. Yes. But within here there's going to be several things. I'll probably clean it up so that there's only like a couple of lights and a couple things here, just giving you like the basic file for um, that's like available for the public. But for the most part, within here, you'll see that there's other camera angles. I'm probably gonna remove these just so that you guys have like a free like open base. But if you're in a file in a folder, just make sure that it's actually selected, and then you can hit Shift A, and then you can hit camera, and it'll pop up a camera in that space. Because if not, if you put it in here and you do Shift A, and you add a camera, it's just gonna add it to the bottom, and it might make it a little bit difficult. Um, so that's just a tip for you. And again, as a reminder, to go ahead and have the active camera, you can go ahead and select all these options. I usually have so many cameras because I'm cycling through different ways to go ahead and like position things, right? But for the most part, this is of the set. So camera, lights, light box. So part of this is important just because sometimes when I would do different angles for things, you'll see that there's the option for the night sky, and this is for the most part, like if I was doing an angle and I just needed to see what it looked like and I just needed to block something out, it's like, well, this is the shot that it would look like, yes. And then if I had opened the door, yeah, this is the inner penthouse, so I just needed to go ahead and block out that orange light, so I could just like at least visualize it, considering everything else in here is like so freaking dark, right? But this is Rumi's room. um, is everything perfect? No, but mind you, I'm basing it off of like maybe one angle from the concept art, so you know, I think it looks good enough. Within the set, okay, everything should be organized and everything. I would highly recommend to not just don't just randomly delete shit. If you're going to edit the file, I highly recommend for you to save it out and edit it on a separate one. Of course, you can re-download it and stuff and everything, but I highly recommend to go ahead and you know, just not overdo it in that kind of way. You know, it's always great to have like a saved out separate file for things. Um, but yes, so this is Rumi's room. These are the um, you know, her stupid fucking decorations that are on the wall, right? It was designed primarily to go ahead and like talk about her patterns and the jagged edges, etc., right? The lights that she has, right? Okay. And of course her little teddy bear. Some of the objects in here, just as a note, right, you'll see that there is a, these are just notes on how to use the file, because right, I wasn't planning to make it like public use, but I'm like you know, kind of thing. Just a note, right, some of these objects have modifiers on them to make this the file itself like a little bit smaller and a little bit easier for me personally to use. But some of these parts are separate. They're like not actually real parts. Um, and right, you'll see that the main part is this arm right here. If I move this, like this is not like, it's not real, right? I mean, it's kind of real, but it doesn't work the same. you know, right? But most of them, right, they're parented to this main body. So if you're gonna move this teddy bear, I just recommend picking it up by the body before you start moving it from anywhere. Okay. Same thing happens with some of the pillows, right? Both of these pillows, they are together. They are not actually separate. If you wanted to separate them, you could do oh, you could remove the modifier and then do other stuff. But if you wanted to do stuff like that, go ahead and let me know, and then I can go ahead and talk it over with you. But for the most part, I'm just doing something super slapdash. But yes, this is her room, the little plants, the bookcase kind of energy. And yes, these are the Polaroids that are by her bed. So it was a combination of doing some research in regards to the concept art um, that Mingjue Chen came out with, but it's also a combination of like what was confirmed within the movie, right? So it was a lot of looking at screenshots for things, because then over here should technically actually be the photos of her mother and also some other extra knickknacks that she had. I couldn't see in some of the top shelves, so I didn't put anything in there. For the most part, right? Whenever you're doing stuff in Blender, whenever you're doing stuff for 3D modeling, a large part of it is just doing stuff that's like trying to reuse assets smartly, right? Because you'll see that some of these objects, right, they're ones that were already popped up, already modeled over here. Same thing for the guitar. Okay. Yes, I modeled the whole guitar. Crazy, crazy, crazy. But for these things, right, I just highly recommend that you just save out the file and then you figure out what you would like to do for things. With the door, I highly recommend that. The thing is that I moved the origin point, or um the origin for the actual door to the middle of it on the actual edge. So if you do RZ, you can actually open and close the door. Right. Uh if you wanted to move this plant, make sure you grab the base before you start moving stuff, because all of the plant leaves are parented to the plant pot. So if you move this, you're going to be moving the individual leaf. So be careful with that. If you wanted to go ahead and move, oops, so sorry. Right. If you wanted to move these curtains that Rumi has, GXX, right? And you'll be able to move the curtains. Okay. So that's moving it along the local x-axis, right? It's because I end up having this what is it? I ended up having a curve, and it's on a modifier for it. So if you're moving it, if you wanted to move the curtains, you can. Feel free to. These chairs, okay. Is it floating? Yeah, it is. So if you're doing this for like 2D, please like ignore that it's not entirely accurate. I was just trying to get it for the space, right? Because I'm gonna draw over it anyways. But for the most part, right? Oh, also these closet doors, right? It's a little bit different in some concept art versus to the movie, so I was just doing it as best as I could. But this door does also open RZ, so you can go ahead and open it if you'd like to, if you'd want. So if you want to put Rumi in the closet, feel free to. Be my guest. But for the most part, this is the outer balcony. I didn't model like a ton of gajillion stuff. There is technically supposed to be like a closet in this area that's like right over here, but I didn't model it. But yeah. So for the most part, this is Rumi's room, and I'm making it available for the general public. If you like what I do, whether it's in the stuff that I've made before, if you really like this file and you'd like to go ahead and ask for more help, feel free to. If you like what I do, feel free to donate to my Ko-Fi, up to you. But for the most part, yeah. So I'm just going to make this available for the general public. If you have any other questions, feel free to reach out. Feel free to ask me. I have no problem answering questions, and I like to reward people who are curious for things. And for the most part, oh, one last thing. Okay. One thing to note though is you might see it sometimes in some of the previous screenshots that I've had where I end up posting my behind the scenes about the actual blend files that I end up making and using, right? Mind you, I did this completely from scratch. I did this completely from scratch. Nothing is made like is like a reused asset from like something I bought off online. Like I made the whole thing from scratch. Okay, this was a lot of time, a lot of work. So if you really like it and you'd like to support me, feel free to. But the main thing that's not in here that you'll see is the characters. Okay, part of the reasons why it is not included in this, and I'm not going to include it, is because I didn't make those models. So what are those? It's actually an adjustable mannequin that I found that I got from the Blender Marketplace. They changed the name to be Super Hive Market. It's the same place, Blender Marketplace. It's $5, $5 US. This is a great asset, and I can't tell you how great it is. Like it's actually super amazing, and I'm actually seeing that they're doing updates to it. The fact that before, mind you, in previous versions they had at most like a general basic part, but now in the newest version you can have extra facial features and you can add a muzzle for things. It's just super duper great, super great asset, right? Because mind you, right, if this is the whole thing is Blender's open source and then you do $5 to like do this. Mind you, I've used these models and you can adjust them to be different. Like you can have ridges, you can different length, and for like horns. See, mind you, but that's not even what I used it for. Like you can change the different size, you can change it. Everything's completely rigged for like how you need to do it. They have video tutorials on how to actually use it. So I won't be talking about it because it's also not my product. So, you know, uh, I highly recommend for you to go ahead and, uh, you know, I recommend for you to check this out. But I'm not sponsored or anything. It's just the case where, like, if you wanted to use it, I highly recommend it. You can change the size of like shoulders. You can have a mask mannequin. You can have a femme one. You could change it. Like there's so much, and it's like literally like $5. And there's like a ton of support. They even have like presets for like the different hand options. I'm not including that in my file because it's not my file to give. And but if you had questions on how to use it or how I personally use that file, I have no problems telling you how and just talking with you over it. But for the most part, that is what this is. So, yeah, that is like the main part I'd say about the Blender file. But for the most part, yes, this is Rumi's Room. Um, this is not my intellectual property. This is Netflix, Sony's K-pop Demon Hunters. Okay, I'm just making a Blender file available. Okay, but for the most part, because I don't want to get copyrighted for anything, so for the most part, I'm just doing this. I just did this for fun. I just did this because I really wanted to work on the scene, and I've reused it for several other pieces that I've worked on. So if you'd like to go ahead and use it, feel free to. Um, but yeah, so if you go ahead and, if anything, if you're planning to go ahead and include it in a file, you can always basically do file, append, and then you would grab for, in the collection, it'd be the bones and the rig, and then you can go ahead and insert it into a space, into the collection. And if you'd like to go ahead and hear a little bit more about how to use both this adjustable mannequin as in tandem with my room, feel free to reach out to me and we can go ahead and talk about it. But for the most part, all I'm providing, and the main thing that I'm providing, is this very slapdash tutorial video and how to use my actual blend file, the blend file, and then some like a cheat sheet, and then I'll include links in like the Twitter thread or even like in something else to go and like just talk about it. But for the most part, that's all I have to say on how to use Blender and how to use my blend file. I'll go ahead and clean this up when I upload the file, and if you'd like to go ahead and use it, feel free to. If you make anything with this, and if you choose to use it and you love the experience, or even if you don't, I don't know, it doesn't matter. Tag me at Lunar Days on Twitter. That is LUNARDAISE on Twitter. So yeah, for the most part, um, I'd love to see what you guys make, and I'd love to see where you guys go with it. But yeah, happy drawing, happy modeling.